Trey Edward Shults, the director, and Kelvin Jr. They said he was, so I'm glad you all are here. I love it that they're all here because, like, I want to talk to all three of y'all about what y'all saw. For the folks watching this, I hope you didn't know anything before you watched it, and that whole break in the middle of it shocked you the way that it shocked me when I saw it for the first time, because it's amazing. Trey, I'm going to talk to you about this story because I know when you wrote it, we had talked about this before, in his mind, just so you guys know, this is a romance musical, what y'all just watched. That's what he said to me when I was helping him when I was talking to him about his last film. And the first time I saw it, I literally was like, I have so many questions, man. So, but I know that you wrote this with the music. In fact, like when people read the script, they could click over and listen to audio cues from it. So talk about how the music was woven into this entire story and really why it drives it in that musical way.
Yeah, I think, aspects of this have been brewing for a really long time, and I think a part of that was just like being obsessed with certain soundtrack-driven films, that I really loved, like from Dazed and Confused to Boogie Nights to Goodfellas to everything. And I think, for myself when I was in high school, music was really huge. It got me through a lot of things. So I thought this would be the right kind of movie for that, and I thought music would be important for Tyler and Emily as well, and I had hoped basically that not only would the music be the ebb and flow of it, but it brings you kind of closer to their world and their headspace and all that good stuff. So yeah, it just felt right that we had to embed it into the script, even to where you could listen to it as you were reading and everything, just to kind of get the spiritual nature of the script across.
Yeah, and it really does, because it's like another character in the film in a lot of ways. And Kelvin, I'm going to bring it to you in a minute because, let's be honest, he handed you the script before anybody else did, probably before even maybe the embeds were done. But Sterling, this is how you got the script, was with all those cues. So talk about it, because I know you said that it really took you to a place when you first read it.
Yeah, first and only experience that I've ever had of reading a script and like being able to hit a button and listen to the song that the director, writer wants to underscore the scene, so that you have a real sort of idea of the propulsion of each scene as you're reading it, right? Like, so you have what the words on the page, but then you got Kanye coming in underneath it, and you're like, okay. So that first half, like even in reading it, you're like, there's this roller coaster that keeps going up, and you know at some point in time it's gonna go down. And you're like, please don't go down, roller coaster, please. And then at some point in time, you see it's like whoosh, right? And then the second half of the script is much more languid. Like there's breath. There's a greater degree of breath in the second half of the film because you've now shifted perspectives. It's Emily's perspective rather than Tyler's perspective. I've never encountered it, and it was one of the things that I was like, okay, because I was shooting This Is Us at the same time, and I knew they were going to go into production. But that initial read, not only the music, but like the pops of color that he would have in the script. Like there would be words like beauty or love that would just be in like this gigantic rainbow font. And then it would go back to just, Curry at 12 point, whatever it is. And so I'd never seen anyone just sort of like, there was a real care and feeling to the reader of the script. Like recognize, like, I want you to see and feel the experience that I had creating this thing off the page, so that you know that what you're getting yourself into. And it was a really visceral read. And if I don't think that the read were as visceral as it were, I probably would have just been like, oh, it's nice, I'll move on. But there's something that captivated you from the page because it was a complete experience. It wasn't just the read, it was, you felt everything. I almost feel like if he had scratch and sniff, and I could like smell salt water coming off the thing, he would have incorporated, but next film.
Trey's taking notes for his next screenplay, Scratch and Sniff. No, I mean, but I downloaded the script today and we didn't get all the cool fonts, I will say that. It wasn't that cool for online folks, but I think that's because you're the writer-director, so you don't have to feel as most writers do, taking the director's job away from them by being too visual. You're like, I got that job too, so I can go ahead and put that in there. So I get why it's such a unique experience. And then you kind of glossed over, which is, I know both for you and Kelvin, the break, if we will, when Kelvin has the most horrible thing that we could possibly see happen. That's a difficult thing to sign on for, I think, especially given, you know, the ideas and the themes that it's playing with. And I know both of you had a very eventful lunch where y'all talked about it, and then the result ended up a more collaborative script. So I want to talk to Kelvin and Sterling about that meeting where y'all discussed how y'all worked to make this script what it is.
After you, bro.
Ooh. I mean, I would say that, where do I start? Well, I feel like I always have to start still. Trey gave me the option to play either role. And so when we first spoke about it, he was like, there's the brother in the first half that's a wrestler, and then there's a boyfriend in the second half, and you can play which one you want. I said was the more challenging part, and he said it's the wrestler because you're not athletic.
The shade.
I mean, we're seeking the truth in this movie, and that was the truth in that moment. And so, you know, going into it, you know, you didn't really know that this would be how it would plan out, but there was no awareness at first for me that it was going to be it was going to be a black thing. So once we finally got the script, there were conversations about that moment so that we don't lean into the cliches or the stereotypes that could so easily be happen that way. But yeah, so then I met with Sterling, and I feel like he tells the story better than I do, so I'm gonna let you tell the story.
Wait, before I tell my part of the story, you have to tell me this, because I talked to Trey on the phone first, and I told him the concerns that I had about that crucial moment in the script. And we talked about it. He was so open and so easy. There was no ego about the conversation. He's like, I want this to be something where everyone feels comfortable, because I don't want to lose my audience at the halfway point. I want to make sure that they continue with the story through to the end. And he said, maybe you should talk to Kel. Do you think that would be of note? And I was like, yeah, let me talk to this brother, see what he got himself into. But what I want to know is, what was the conversation between you guys before I had my conversation with Kelvin?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I mean, it was ever going, you know, because like when I first started writing, we were doing these mini therapy sessions and like talking about our past at that time and relationships with our fathers and mothers and girlfriends and siblings and pressures and all that good stuff, and commonalities and differences in our experience. So it started there, and then Kel got the script like 8 months before we started shooting. I mean, I don't know. I don't even remember exactly which discussion was the right, you know what I mean? Because it was always happening.
I just knew it was going to be a risk, and I knew it was going to be scary. And I remember, like, I called Trey, he was at Epcot, and I was like, all right, maybe now's not the time to talk about this. But, you know, this is a big moment, and with that comes a huge responsibility. Now I have to wrap my head around that as a young person as to what am I getting involved in and how are we going to do it to tell it the most honestly as possible, because we are not exempt from that moment. Like, we're human beings and anyone's capable of going to that place. So how do we tell it responsibly, and how do we make sure we understand how that boy got there? And so all those elements were there. We just had to make sure we fleshed them out, and we're very careful and very specific about it. So I was nervous, but I know the boy's a boy, so I just had to give him permission to be a boy, you know?
Yeah, no, and I'm with you. And I think the thing that was my concern is, like, he's not just a boy now, he's a black boy. And he's a black boy in America, and that necessarily changes the way that the audience will experience this scene and this journey. And I just wanted to make sure that we were going into it with eyes wide open, recognizing that it's like, it is a cool artistic experience. It is going to be something I think that could be really wonderfully fruitful, but that once you do it, it now belongs to the audience, and they're allowed to interpret it and experience however they see fit, right? And he's like, yeah, I hear what you're saying. This is us at our lunch. Kelvin's like, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like, my dad thinks it's pretty crazy. He didn't know. He's like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know how that's going to happen, right? And then he said, but it's a really good part, right? And I said, yeah, man, it's a good part. And he said, well, should I not do it just because I'm black? And I was like, oh, snap. Like, you flipped it on me, right? And I mean, I was scared. You know, a young black man takes someone's life halfway through this movie. And I didn't want it to be a negative portrayal. I wanted it to be a portrayal of a beautiful soul who lost his way and made a terrible mistake. And I think to Trey and Kelvin and A24's credit, like, I think that's what we created. right? And I felt like the fears that I had as a parent, as an actor for Kelvin, I was like, were akin to the fears that this dad, Ronald, would have for his son, Tyler. And I thought at first it was a reason why I shouldn't do it. And then I realized, like, no, that fear, use that. Like, that fear makes him love the way that he does. That fear makes him hold on really, really tight because he already knows what it's like to have lost his first wife, to a drug overdose. And so now, family is this thing that we're given, but it's not promised forever. And you have to make sure that you cultivate it the way that you know how to, right? Otherwise, it could fall away from you. And so he holds on real tight and actually winds up causing that thing to a certain extent that he feared most because his son never felt as if he could come to him and share the difficult parts of life, right? The conversations between us were like me speaking at him. They weren't like a dialogue between two people who are trying to learn from each other. And so, for me, what was important was not that he come off mean or be likable or unlikable, but that he be understood, that you can understand why he loved his son the way that he did. And then there's a moment of learning in the second half of the film because of the tragedy, which I really prize, because you see him show strength in a different way, that vulnerability is as strong, if not stronger, than trying to maintain some sort of tough exterior. But it was a good conversation. Like, I kind of fell in love with Kelvin, like, in this first lunch, because he'd been working out really hard. He was really worried about the wrestling. So he was like wrestling like twice a day and lifting weights, eating like 3,000 calories. He had his big boy pants on. And when we went to this lunch, like, he just ate like he had never eaten food before in his life. And I had that feeling of a parent of like, oh, this is such a good eater. Like, look at this dude. But it was a love for him that I was like, all right, I had seen Trey's first film, Creature, and I knew that he was a brilliant filmmaker, that he could create tension out of something that you wouldn't necessarily see as being a tense sort of thing, so that the storytelling aspect and like just the immersion of it was something that was going to be there. And then I don't know if y'all have seen this dude in Loose.
Yeah.
Seen Loose? He's a beast. Like, I get a chance to say that I knew him when and that he was nice to me, and then he'll be all Denzel and just be like, oh yeah, Sterl. What's up, man? How you doing? Yo, Sterl.
You're being really modest, so since you're tooting everyone's horn, I want to talk about the fact that this man was filming This Is Us 5 days a week and flew to Florida every weekend to put on stage what everybody saw and was working 7 days a week. And so, as incredible as that performance is and like all the things that you guys had to do to make it happen, that's remarkable. And I just want, whenever they do your Golden Globes and Oscars like highlight reel, they gotta show a picture of you being nice as Randall and then that death stare at the wrestling match. Be like, the guy has range, y'all. But before I throw it off to the audience, I'm gonna ask one more question, and then also, guys, when we do wrap, I just wanna let you guys know, please hold, because these guys have to rush off to another Q&A. So, real quick, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and throw it to the audience. Does anyone have any questions? All right, I'm gonna go right here. I'll repeat it. So his question was, do you think Tyler will ever receive his own personal forgiveness from both his father and forgive himself?
I hope so. I hope it feels like, they're on a journey. Like, literally the end of the last image is Emily on that bike with the road ahead. Everything's not tied up. It's not beautiful, but they're all trying. Like, Tyler still has God, and he's still, like, he's on that journey, and they have a lot of stuff to go forward. So, personally, I very, very much hope so, I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's on their own personal journey and everyone's growing and in process, and you always hope for the best, but it's hard to say unless you're in that situation. I've seen people come out of it, and I've also seen people that couldn't find their way. So I think what's beautiful about a movie like this is that it gives you an opportunity to recognize the moments in which we can change that, and which we can open up that communication and connect to those that we love the most and speak out about what's going on inside. So I can't speak for Tyler, but I can speak for everyone here and what you're going through now. That there's always opportunity to rectify whatever isn't great right now. You know.
Excellent. Anybody else have a question? All right, right here. Basically, his question is, what is going on with your mind with these visuals, and how do you pull them out and put them on screen? No, but seriously, it is an arresting cinematic display that you put on the screen. So how did you conceive it and come up with it?
Well, I gotta give a shout out to my DP, Drew Daniels. He's the best in the world. Give him a round of applause. He also has an incredible colorist demo. Well, I don't know. We've been, I've made every movie with Drew. Everything we're doing, basically, our real big goal is to try to make the internal state of the character come out through the film, if that makes sense. All motivations through camera movement, through aspect ratio, through the sound and colors and everything is just to bring you closer to their experience and their headspace. So if that's spinning through a car, you know, with Tyler and Lex on the bridge, it's because that's how their relationship feels, and that's how Ty feels in that moment. It's that their love is like a bottle of fire, you know, and it's chaotic and beautiful, and it feels like that to be free in your car at that age with the person you love. So that's one example I give, but then everything throughout the whole movie, it's really just to bring you close to Tyler's headspace and then Emily's headspace, and we're drawing on that and then just pushing to make it as subjective and experiential as possible with everything we're doing.
One of my favorite transitions in the film is when you in the first half of the film and Tyler's crying and then he looks into the camera, like kind of breaks the fourth wall for just a second. He's like, is he looking at me? Type that. Then it goes black, and then just like the shadow plays over Emily's face and she comes into focus. Ah, that shit gets me.
I mean, that transition is absolutely incredible. And the one thing I go back to it when we talk about, because this film is a hard film to really always appreciate right away its greatness, but I like to think about it this way when people are like, is it her film, is it his film? I like to think about it as definitely Ronald's film, because I think it shows how a dad who thinks he's a good dad can be a bad dad, and how in being a good dad who's actually bad, he actually learns how to be a better one. Like, he had to be the bad dad for Tyler to be, I think, a better one for Emily, and that's what I think a lot of parents do. Not with a huge tragedy, but that's the reason why the second kid has it better, let's be honest. Anybody have any questions over here? Oh, right back there.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say, absolutely brilliant performances. I mean, just like, absolutely brilliant. And I mean, that scene with Tyler and Alexis, as actors, what was it like filming that scene? I mean, on set, like, did you have to prepare yourself? Or?
So he was asking, how did you do the pivotal scene between you and Alexa?
It was the most talked about scene in the movie for us, because it's such an important moment, and honestly, you know, Alexa and I understood that we had a huge responsibility to tell it respectfully and honestly, and we couldn't do it unless we trusted each other. So we made sure we built a relationship of our own where we understood who each other were and how we would separate those characters from ourselves, so that when we were in that space, we could go there and we feel the freedom to just, you know, live the truth and understand the codependency, understand the burden of their parents kind of coming upon them, understand the feeling that there's a betrayal and the violation of trust, and the lack of self-worth and the lack of forgiving yourself in that moment for what you have been, how we got to that space. And at the same time, when we check out, we can go, I love you, and you're amazing, and you're beautiful, and give me a hug and just make sure that the room was safe. And Trey was there, and Taylor was there, and everyone from A24 was there, and everyone understood how the scene didn't work, the movie doesn't maybe really work. How do we get into this place of healing unless we understand how these two young kids kind of got lost in translation in this moment? And so the love was always there first and foremost every day.
Well, the proof is in the pudding because the film's incredible. It does work. It does make the movie. I want to thank you guys for this conversation. I want to thank you guys for watching.
Thank you guys.